Hi everybody, teachers and students alike. Welcome back to another episode of my podcast. My name is Caroline and today we'll be talking about lessons, or more specifically, the most important lessons I've learned in the world of English. And there are many, many lessons, a plethora, in fact, that I've learned from my English class. However, there were only 4 lessons that stood out to me and what I think are worth going over and talking about. The first one I will be going over is that it's okay to have first drafts and are, well, for lack of a better term, not very good. Basically, so many writers have this fear that if they don't write a perfect first draft, their life is practically over. Unfortunately, I am sad to admit that I also obsessed about making sure my first ever draft I've written for any assignment or etc. was perfect. Because of this, I struggled to even start writing or putting anything down because I wanted to make sure it was all perfect. So this resulted in me procrastinating and turning in the first draft. And only the first draft I've ever written for a particular assignment. This is not how the writing process should go at all. It is much better to have a poorly written first draft, as that will allow the writer to put everything they have on paper, and then they will be able to revise it after. Anne Lamott even once stated from her expert Shizzy First Drafts that almost all good writing begins with terrible first efforts. You need to start somewhere. Start by getting anything down on paper. A friend of mine says that the first draft is the down draft. You just get it down, and then the second draft is the up draft. You fix it up. From reading her expert, especially reading the statement from her in my English class, it taught me that first drafts don't have to be perfect. In fact, it's better if they're not. You take the pressure away, helping the writer at least start writing. That way you can revise and make the second draft up for the final draft to be perfect. Just putting something down can go a long way during the writing process. That's why it's totally okay to have subpar first drafts. You'll always just fix it later. Now, the second lesson I've learned this semester was about revision. In other words, revision is as important as writing a first draft, and it should not just be something you can check off when you're done writing. For example, Giovanella from Strong Writing and Writers Don't Need Revision, it's like a little passage. She states, revision is not the thing writers do when they're done writing. Revision is the writing. Thus, revision is part of the whole writing process. You do it at every part of the writing process, and it is not just a simple step. Incorporating revision in my writing allows for me to focus on the purpose of my piece, my audience, my organization, my structure, and the details I discussed. In fact, revision helped me hone in all of my components that belong in my writing and erase some of the unnecessary parts that I wrote about in my first draft, so they kind of all correlate together. Alright, on to the next lesson, and we're almost done, I promise. So, as I was saying, the third lesson I learned this semester was the power of concision. This kind of goes hand in hand with revision, but I think concision is a topic on its own, which is very important to fully discuss, at least in my opinion. That being said, concision is a useful tool to have when writing, and especially when you revise. My problem in writing was I would always write run-on sentences and never know how to put what I want to say in a more straight to the point kind of way. Word counts were always a pain for me because I would always go over them. But my English class this semester really focused on keeping to the word count and keeping our writing as concise as possible, since any piece of writing is much stronger when it is put in fewer words. The wordy / concise table provided at George Mason's University website that my professor gave us to use stated that wordiness in sentences and redundancy in paragraphs, which can confuse the reader and cloud your ideas. So some ways they mentioned that can help reduce redundancy and keeping everything concise, which also helped me a lot, was to study sentences in your first draft to see what you can delete without losing meaning, and to keep concrete specific examples but cut out extra words, empty phrases, weak qualifiers, negative constructions, and unnecessary to be words. So those are some of the things that helped me. Now finally, and I know we're finally here, the last important lesson I've learned throughout this whole class was, and I saved the best for last, and it's okay to doubt and have fear of failing when writing, because from failure stems success. Basically, Adam Grant said in his speech once that Martin Luther King Jr. had many doubts of his speech. Martin Luther King Jr. kept rewording and rewriting until he got up on that podium and stated a line that is still infamous to this day. And I'm sure you all know what that line is. And it was never even scripted. I even remember when I was writing a research paper for a research class, I had so many doubts that my writing would never be good enough and I would never get a good score, so why even bother? However, that didn't stop me. I pushed through my doubts, made sure my writing was perfect, and had all components which helped me achieve that perfect score that I was looking for. It's the best thing I've probably ever written to this day. Therefore, it is okay to have doubts, especially when you write, but getting over those doubts and just going for it can take you far in the world of writing. That's why writing first drafts and revising later is so important. And that's all I have to say for today. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time.